This is it, right? Like this will tilt the scales one direction or the other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Numbers.
I make it or break it here.
This is it, Rachel. Here we go.
This is a show about self-discovery.
About understanding ourselves.
About looking into the mirror to see the good,
the bad,
and the unknown of who we are.
This is about how we relate to God
and everyone else.
From Love Thy Neighborhood in Louisville, Kentucky.
Welcome.
Welcome to the Enneacast.
Welcome to the Enneacast. I am Jesse Eubanks.
And I'm Sam Stevenson.
Every episode, we walk you through the Enneagram, and we finally have wrapped up all 9 types.
Woohoo!
So up until now, we've been doing like Enneagram 101, and this episode, we're going to kind of move on to Enneagram 102, which I mean, if you have not listened to the previous episodes, this is not the episode to dive into first because everything is built on the episodes that came before it. So you want to go back and get caught up. But if you've done all the listening, congratulations, because we're about to go a little bit deeper.
You graduated.
In this episode. Yeah. Well, you haven't you moved on to the next grade. Yeah. Okay, so we want to talk in today's episode about 2 different things. We're going to talk about arrows and we're going to talk about wings. Sam, let's kick off with arrows. So first, what are your thoughts about arrows? What are they?
Yeah, so in an Enneagram theory, there's this idea of 9 different numbers, and each number comes with 2 arrows that they receive energy from. And so there's some debate on whether or not you receive the positive attributes of that other style or just the negative. And for our purposes, we just want to give you just a broad strokes example overview of the different types. We're going to go through all of the numbers and say hey, if you're this number, these are your possible arrows, and just hold those both with open hands. We don't necessarily know under stress, I'm always going to go to this number, or under security, you'll always go to that. I think we're complicated, and there's some gray area and some nuance with the wings and arrows, and we just want to be mindful of that. And so that's where I'm at with the arrows.
Okay, so I'm in a similar space. So the basic idea is that when each of us as a person, when we are feeling secure, that we take on certain attributes of a different number than our core type. Mm-hmm. And then when we're stressed out, we take on attributes of yet a different number than our core type. And Sam and I have gone back and forth on this. And basically, we think that there's enough truth and relevancy in this content that we want to go ahead and share it with you guys. But we also recognize sometimes some of this stuff we don't see evidence for. So we just want to start right out of the gate and say, we're going to give it to you because we think it's important enough. Yeah. But if you go, that does not sound true to me, that is totally fine. But we're going to go ahead and dig into the arrows theory. All right, you ready, Sam?
I'm ready.
Okay, so we're going to kick things off with the heart triad. Heart triad type 2s. Of course, you guys are known as the helper. And the helpers, these folks are generous and they're giving. But when these folks are feeling secure, in other words, when they're healthy, they take on the traits of the 4.
Remember, they're the helper. They're very selfless. They're kind of externally defined. And so under times of security, that 4 energy will allow them to live with a sense of self, to have individual needs and individual wants and desires and preferences. And it will help that 2 space become more creative and honest, and to express their full range of emotions. Because remember, 2s kind of repress their own needs and repress their emotions, but that 4 energy will help them live out of that space. Yeah,
because 4s, we tend to have the gift of being emotionally aware. What is it that we need or want, or what are we feeling in this moment? And so when a 2's healthy, when they feel secure, they're going to go to that 4 space. But the 2s do need to be aware that, us 4s, we struggle with envy and we struggle with becoming self-absorbed. And so just beware that you can begin to pull from some of that energy. So that's when a 2 feels secure. Okay, so when a 2 gets stressed out, when they're freaking out, what happens?
Yeah, so they take on that energy of the 8. And so that impacts the 2s because they become aggressive. Because 2s are so servant-hearted, and so if they see that people that they're taking care of, if something goes wrong, they're going to be quick to jump on that.
Well, not just that, especially if they feel underappreciated.
Right.
That is when you see a 2 go from being like, "Let me care for you," to like, "Let me destroy you." Yeah, they take on, typically like the aggressive sides of the 8. However, Here's what's positive, though. Sometimes under certain stressful situations, the 2 can go to that 8, and they can actually pull from the positive side of the 8, which is being more assertive, being more assertive with their needs, telling other people, listen, I'm angry about this, and I'm frustrated about this, and I'm mad, and I need these things. And sometimes that can be very, very healthy.
Yeah, that 8 energy helps them kind of relinquish that tendency to be people-pleasing and really make sure that everybody else is okay and on good terms. That 8 energy allows them to step in with more confidence.
Okay, so let's talk about the 3. So the 3, these are our achievers, our efficient people, and they like to get things done. So let's talk about what happens. When these folks are feeling secure, they go to what?
The 6. And so that helps them become more committed and loyal about their accomplishments and their also helps them live into that honesty. And so the 3s, remember, they struggle with deception and do things by any means necessary. But that 6 energy will allow them to have more level-headedness and say, okay, actually, like, here's what I'm thinking. Here are my plans.
Yeah, because 6s don't tend to be very dishonest people, and they tend to be pretty
very
straightforward.
Authentic, what you see is what you get.
Yeah, they're emotionally, they prefer like emotional realness, and so the 3 is able to kind of pull from that. And, 6s aren't really concerned with what other people think about them all the time as much as they want to, a healthy 6 wants to stay committed to something because they believe in it by their own conviction. But here's the thing is that the 3s, they need to be aware of that 6 indecisiveness, that second guessing, that skepticism that can seep in.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the 3 under the secure arrow. What happens under the stress arrow?
Yeah, they move toward the 9 space, and so they become kind of passive aggressive. They'll check out. They'll kind of move on. They won't really commit to anything, and so they need to be aware of that because they will load their responsibilities onto other people. But there's some positive things that they can gain from the 9s, and that is to benefit from their calmness and the ability to slow down. I think 3s have a lot of energy, and so they can kind of tap into the 9 tranquility and serenity and contentment a lot better with that healthy space of the 9.
Okay, so now let's talk about the last person in the heart triad. Let's talk about the 4s,
The best person.
my people.
Yeah.
4s, we're originalists. We are creative types. We like things off the beaten path. When we are feeling secure, we move to the 1 space. And of course, 1s are about fairness. They're about objectivity. They're about not just letting sort of our emotional whimsies, dictate how we react to things, but trying to look at things objectively and then take real concrete action towards good and true change. However, the negative side of the 1 is that we can also become very self-criticizing and really begin to place a lot of high demands on other people. Okay, so that is the 4 when we're feeling secure. What happens when we're stressed out?
Right, so because 4s are in the relational triad, they can take on the unhealthy characteristics of type 2, and so that impacts the 4s by just becoming more codependent or emotionally manipulative.
Yeah,
people-pleasing, and what do you think of me? Just kind of that push-pull thing that 4s can kind of do in their relationships. They can take on that attention-seeking aspect of the 2 if they're in that super unhealthy space. But 2s are super great, and they can really teach 4s a lot about accommodating other people and not just thinking about the self all the time. 4s can kind of live in a space of what about me? It's all about me. And so 2s will help the 4 open up and recognize the others around them.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so let's talk now about the head triad. So the head triad. So our 5s, these are our investigators, our wise people, our thinkers. And 5s, when they are feeling secure, they actually move to the 8 space. And the 8 space is all about energy. It's all about action. 8s are our powerful people. They like to get out there and get things done. And so when a 5 feels secure, they get out of their head and they really begin taking the thoughts that they're having. They begin sharing them with other people. They begin moving towards action. And they actually also begin to pay more attention to what they're feeling and even what's going on in their body. They just begin to become more aware. But the 5 has to become careful because they can also begin to go to that 8 space that becomes all about trying to control and dominate other people. Okay, so that's under security, the 5 goes to the 8. What happens when they're stressed out?
When they're stressed, they go to 7, and so that energy from the 7, they take on the negative aspects of the 7, so they become easily distracted and kind of lost. Remember, the 7s can be kind of dangerous in relationships just with their lack of ability to be sober-minded and committed. And so the 5 can take on some of that as well.
And the 5 loses the ability to even learn how to prioritize. They get lost in their priorities.
So they spend too much of their time and their money on extraneous activities and tasks. But remember, the 5 can kind of be checked out. And so that 7 space can also help them become more whimsical and more lighthearted.
5s can be a little pensive sometimes, and that 7 energy can, help them
loosen up and have fun. And
laugh and enjoy.
And the generosity. Remember, the 5 struggle with greed, but 7s are usually pretty generous and spontaneous, and so 5s can really benefit from that 7 space.
Okay, 6s, the loyalist. So these folks are very faithful. They're very diligent. They are well prepared. And when these folks are feeling secure, they go to the 9 space. The 6 often struggles with issues of anxiety, issues of fear. And when they feel secure, they move to that 9 space, which is about feeling calm. They become more able to kind of go along with whatever's going on in the moment.
Flow.
Yeah, more go with the flow. They trust other people more. They trust themselves more. They become far less suspicious of other people's motives. But the 6 has to become mindful of the fact that if they become overly secure, they can actually move to the apathetic side of the 9. Typically 6s are really diligent about getting things done. A non-resourceful 9, not so much. And so the 6 has to beware of taking on those numbing and apathetic qualities of the 9. So Sam, what happens when they become stressed?
Yeah, so they start to move to that unhealthy 3 space. And remember, 3s are all about their network and their relationships and trying to leverage their personal networks for the benefit of themselves. And so 6s can become susceptible to that as well. And they'll start to try to impress other people, that overly accommodating, people-pleasing thing that the 3 can have. Well,
and also this is that 6s especially, they'll move to that mantra that some of the non-resourceful 3s can have, which is the ends justify the means. So it doesn't matter what it takes to get there. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And especially, 6s get oriented around safety. And so they'll really bulldoze the people around them so long as they can arrive at the station that they feel has the most amount of safety.
Yeah, usually they're all about, making sure we do things the right way and being really thorough. But under stress, they can start to cut corners and to try to get stuff done. However, the 3 space does offer a lot to the 6 because that helps them have a place of security, that place of contentment and optimism. And 3s are really decisive. And 6s can kind of struggle with that 9 energy of being indecisive and not really knowing what to trust. But that 3 energy, that will help them become more decisive and more to finish their lists without a lot of worrying and second guessing.
Okay, the 7s. These folks are enthusiasts. These are the party planning committee. These are the optimists. And these folks, when they feel secure, they actually move to the 5 space. And the 5 space allows 7s. 7s sometimes can really struggle to make definitive decisions on what is ethically and morally good and bad, what is right and wrong. And the 5 space allows them to come to terms with those things. Matters of what are my theological convictions? What are my true beliefs about God? What are my actual morals that I believe in? And it allows the 7 to develop self-discipline.
Yeah. 7s are the most reactive, and I think the 5s are one of the most reflective types. And so to pull from that energy allows them to kind of sit with themselves and to think, how am I doing? Am I okay? What am I afraid of right now? The 5s spend all their energy thinking, and so for the 7, they'll benefit with some of that slowness that the 5 offers.
Yes, but they need to be aware of the 5's ability to detach. The 7 doesn't want to move to that space and become so sort of inner reflective that they begin to detach from other people. That's not the goal. Okay, so what happens when they're stressed?
Yeah, so they actually move to that 1 space, and so they can become critical of themselves. They'll start finding faults in themselves and other people. They take on that inner critic of the 1, that blaming, that guiltiness. The 7 will go from this really optimistic person to a really critical person, and that can be an unhealthy thing if they're stressed out. But there is a beautiful gift that the 1s can offer the 7, and that's to be more grounded. I think that when we talk about 1s, we talk about how they're able to hold all truth and hold just a center of, understanding of the world around them. And I think 7s can really benefit from that wholehearted, sober-minded groundedness that the 1 offers.
Yeah, it takes them from a place of just sort of endless whimsical thinking into a place of, I want to leverage my gifts for the good of the people around me. And that means that I need to have an understanding of what is reality. Okay, let's move into the gut triad. So these are our 8s, 9s, and our 1s. So 8s, so these are our powerful people. These are our strong, challenging challenging contenders. And these folks, when they're feeling secure, they actually move to the 2 space. And this really helps 8s relate to people in a very warm and compassionate and servant-hearted way. It allows the 8 to move to a place where they're very much in tune with the needs of other people, and that they want to direct their energy towards the needs of other people. But the 8 does need to be aware of the 2's tendency to begin to put unrealistic demands on the relationships around them. And to, 2's can even struggle sometimes even with sort of a possessiveness. And so 8's just need to be aware of that as well. Okay, so let's talk about the stress.
Yeah, so whenever 8s are stressed, they can actually move to the 5 space, and that impacts 8s negatively because they become withdrawn from their peers and they can start to become paranoid and skeptical. 8s, remember, they really struggle with the idea of being betrayed or abandoned, and so that 5, if they start to check out, they can kind of move backward and detach from their world. However, the 5 does offer a gift to the 8, which is to become more objective and actually to be able to help moderate their energy a little better, because 8s have that boundless energy, and the 5 can help them pull back and to rein it in a little bit.
Great. Okay, so now we come to the 9s. So 9s, these are our peaceful people. These are our Samantha Stevensons of the world.
The best number on the Enneagram.
That's right. Okay, so 9s under security, you guys actually move to the 3 space.
Yeah, we do.
And this actually helps, it helps our 9s to become productive, to become practical, to be more confident, to take their energy and move externally towards,
we have the ability to
prioritize
others. Better. It's from this idea of everything feels of equal importance, because that 3 energy really helps saying, okay, this is number 1, this is number 2, this is number 3.
Yeah.
And so it's really helpful for the 9s to be able to receive some of that from the 3 space.
Yeah, it turns their life into like, oh, I need to make to-do lists,
Right, yeah.
But the 9 also needs to be aware of the 3 tendency to want to impress other people.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes with that tendency comes the issue of deception. And that deception, for a 9 will show up in the form of appeasement. I'm going to appease you in the moment, when in reality I probably actually have no likelihood that I'm actually going to do that thing at all.
Right.
So that's when they're feeling secure. Okay, so what about when they're stressed?
Under stress, yeah. So they take on the negative traits of the 6. Remember, the 6s are those loyalists, but they also are really they can have a lot of anxiety. And so for the 9, if they're already stressed and overwhelmed, they can start to take on some of the fearful components of the 6 by really activating their indecisiveness and their anxiety. But the 6 really does have something to offer 9s, which is their ability to be more outspoken and be more honest and to stick up for their beliefs. Remember, 6s are loyal, they're tried and true, they're going to get things done, they're going to be there for you, and that energy really does help the 9.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay, and then finally, we come to the 1s. So the 1s, these are our reformers. These are our folks that are oriented around justice and fairness. And when they are feeling secure, they actually go to the 7 space, which is great for them, because 1s sometimes, they struggle with being kind of overly serious. They feel an overabundance of weight on their shoulders. So the 7 space helps that 1 just to kind of lighten up, enjoy life, to be more spontaneous, to be more flexible, to roll with the punches.
To recognize that fun is an important component of life. It's not a punishment, it's not wrong, but it's actually like a gift to be lived in and to experience fully.
Yeah, but beware of the 7's tendency that enough is never enough, and that tendency to want to become overindulgent, which I know that some 1s are listening and going, I will never become overindulgent. Well, I'm just warning you. Just saying maybe. Just saying maybe. Okay, so what happens when they're stressed out?
Yeah, so they go to that negative traits of the 4. And so 1s, if they become overwhelmed with all of that's going on, they can take on the melancholic hopelessness that the 4 can carry, or the idea that nothing is never enough, the unmet expectations,
which feeds their anger.
Right.
It makes them very, very angry.
Well,
and frustrated.
it gives them reason to be mad at the people that they care about, because you guys will never understand. You don't get it. There's all these things that are contingent, upon what I believe in, and so they really kind of adopt a posture of no one loves me, no one gets me. But the 4 energy, the healthy 4 energy, can really help the 1 to live into their creativity, to live into kind of the nuance that the 4 brings to the world. 1s can become very black and white, but the 4 energy really does help them to embrace the mess, embrace the pain, the brokenness. And so, 1s really do need a lot to learn from 4s as well.
Okay, so that is all about the arrows, and if you just endured all of that,
we did it.
You get a gold star. because that is just a lot of content to take in. So when we come back, we actually have somebody here in the studio, and she has a lot of questions for us. We'll be right back. Okay, so Sam, have you been keeping up with our Instagram feed?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, have you seen the one that says, we need help?
Yeah, it's a really funny photo of us where you're trying to tell a funny story and I'm just like, what?
Yeah, you're very displeased with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're asking for people to submit their questions, and we want listeners to send in questions because in an upcoming episode, that's what we're going to do. We're going to answer a bunch of listener questions. If you have a question about the Enneagram, there's something you're dying to know, send the email to podcast@lovethyneighborhood.org or visit us on either Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at LTN Podcasts with an S at the end. Here's an example of one. So what if y'all explored and typed the major biblical characters?
Jonah, he was a non-resourceful 7.
Yeah, for sure.
David and Goliath, I think David was a 4, but maybe had some 9 because he
I've read the Psalms. David was a 4.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
Hey, Sam, do you remember how we first met?
Yeah, you came to my college campus on Halloween night.
That was the weirdest experience. I remember watching a bunch of people arms raised in worship, but they were dressed as Batman.
Yeah, Superman. I was dressed as Lois Lane, so I had a Superman with me.
Unto the Lord. Well, okay, so I came to the school because I was recruiting people for Love Thy Neighborhood, and you showed up.
Yeah, and it worked. So I came the summer after I graduated, served for that summer, loved it so much, decided to stay on for the year, and that year completely changed the trajectory of my life.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this and you're between the ages of 18 and 30 and you're just trying to figure out, what do I want to do with the next summer or the next year of my life? Come, be a part of Love Thy Neighborhood. We have 18 different internship tracks that you can choose from.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity to grow in your relational skills, your professional skills, but also just an opportunity for you to grow deeper in your relationship with the Lord and His people.
So if you want to apply to be a part of this program, head over to lovethyneighborhood.org. While you're there, you can check out all of the different causes that we offer. Choose the ones that you are most passionate about, and then we will pair you up with an organization where you can make a real difference in real people's lives.
You can serve with us for either a summer or a year. So go to lovethyneighborhood.org and apply today.
Hey, welcome back. I'm Jesse Eubanks.
And I'm Sam Stevenson.
Actually, right now in the recording studio, we have Love Thy Neighborhood podcast producer Rachel Szabo.
Hey, welcome back to my studio.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Wait, hold on. No,
Thanks.
We're glad to have you. I'm confused.
Yeah, I don't know how this works.
So we're in Rachel's studio. Okay, so Rach, you said that you had some questions for us.
Yeah. Okay. So you've gone through all the core types. I resonate with a lot of that. And that's pretty clear to understand. But then, we're complicated people. And so we have all the other numbers as well. We're not just one number. So there's this other component to our core that I've heard that's called a wing. And I don't understand the wing. What is the wing? When did the Enneagram turn into a bird? Why are we flying now? What is a wing?
Okay. So wings are essentially this. Every personality type has sort of a core type. There's a core type that you most chiefly identify with. And then on both sides of your number are 2 other numbers. So in your case, as a 4, you have the 3 on one side and you have the 5 on the other side. Mm-hmm. And most commonly, one of those 2 numbers is going to be higher than the other one. And in a lot of cases, it's quite a bit higher than the other one. And whatever your wing is, comes in and it flavors your core type. So example would be this. I am a 4 with a 3 wing. You are a 4 with a 5 wing.
Right.
So in your case, being a 4, so you are an originalist, you're creative, you're emotionally intuitive, you're emotionally expressive. But then the 5 comes in, and this is where you're scholarly, research-oriented. It's why you can sit down and do sort of long, from my perspective, laborious projects, of editing, because you love the knowledge, you love research, and it causes you to back up and to not overreact and to try to think about things. And so the wing comes in and it shapes your core type in very particular ways.
Okay, so everyone has a core and then everyone will have a wing.
Not necessarily. So it honestly depends. So when we say scores and numbers, we're talking about like the actual Enneagram test that you can take, and we've got that link on our FAQ page. So typically whenever someone takes a test, we look at their core type, and then we look at the two numbers corresponding next to them. So the next highest number and the next lowest number. And if one of those is above 60, then we say that you have a wing. But there are some moments when neither one of those numbers are really at play, and so it's okay to not have a wing. Everybody, I think, says like, oh, well, what's your wing? And it's okay. I'm here to say it's okay if you don't have a wing.
Yeah, in some cases, like people are just like they're just like a black coffee 4. Like it's just like that's all they are. Is that they're just very concentrated. They're that core type, and that their wing just isn't much at play. And then every now and then you also get folks that like their wings on both sides are really high, and that happens as well. So that's the kind of the thing with the Enneagram is a lot of times we'll talk about things because it's the most common thing we see. But it doesn't mean that everyone's stuff's going to come out the same. Like, everyone's going to have different results, and people will go like, is this normal? I mean, you're human, and it just happens. And so it's okay. It's normal.
Yeah. So clarify one other thing for me. So like for me, I'm a 4, and let's say, my wing would be my 3 or my 5. But let's say both those numbers on my score are like super low, like less than 30%. But then let's say my 7 is like really high. Does that mean I'm a 4 wing 7?
Okay, so we wouldn't use that language. Like we wouldn't say 4 wing 7. But we could say, if you remember, like all the way back in the first episode, we talked about the fact that we, for shorthand, will say I'm a blank, and we'll say a core number. But the truer thing is to say that we have all 9 of these traits to greater or lesser degrees. And all that means is that, you're a core 4 with very high 7. That's how we would probably say it. Or sometimes I'll hear people say, I knew a guy that had extremely high 3 and extremely high 1. And so he would actually say, well, I'm really kind of a 3-1 because I go back and forth between those two so much. Now, that's not as common. That's why people don't say it as often. But I have seen plenty of, scores that is true.
Gotcha. Okay, so the wings are only the numbers next to your core number.
Yes.
And only if it's significantly high.
Yes. And we haven't talked a lot about scoring, in this series because, typically that's something we do in our workshops. But yes, in this case, if we were to look at someone's scores and there's, as Sam said, their scores over 60 on something, it means it is playing a very definitive role in your personality.
Yeah. And it's a wing because it's next to your number.
Correct.
Right.
That's where the terminology comes from. Remember, the Enneagram scores can't be interpreted apart from your life story. And so when someone takes the full test that has all 9 types, resourceful, non-resourceful, present, we really are just looking at whatever their top 3 scores are. If one is a wing, that's great. But if not, really that person needs to pay attention to, okay, if you're a 4 with a high 7, then pay attention to that 7 stuff. Listen to our episode on the 7, or for example, whatever it may be. It's really just whatever your highest scores are. That's what you need to be playing into. However, listen to the other episodes and read up on your wings because your personality has the capacity and the propensity to take on some of those traits. One of the things that's really interesting about the wings is how just ironic it is that some of those types are next to each other. And we can talk about this a little bit, but the 4 is the most emotionally aware, while the 5 is the most emotionally detached. And so there's something within the Enneagram formula that allows us to lean into certain things better, for that 5 to be able to tap into that 4 space and really to become aware of their emotions. That as a 9, I can lean into the assertiveness of the 8 and the right and wrong, the black and white stuff of the 1.
Yeah, so, I love the wings because the wings show almost the sense that God has built in a fail-safe plan into each of our personalities. So when we develop these wings, so example again, let's go back to the 9. The 9 frequently deals with the issue of vagueness, and they deal with the issue of apathy.
Complacency.
So what happens? Well, God inserts the 8 next to that, and so all of a sudden you've got this 8 energy that is all about like getting things done and about making strong, declarative
very
statements.
assertive.
Very assertive. Or you get the 1 that is about there's a right and a wrong, and I want to take a definitive stance, and I want to stand on the side of truth, and I want to move out of a place of just living sort of in this vagueness, and I want to live to a place where there's morally good and morally evil things in the world, and I want to contend for those. And if you work your way around all 9 types, and you really begin to think about them one at a time, you go, man, all these different wings, they're fail-safe plans. It's like God's backup plan so that we don't just sort of fold inward on ourselves.
Yeah. I love the 7 and 6 one too. Like the 7 is the most spontaneous and the most reckless, but the 6 is the most prepared. And so it's so funny. They kind of need each other. And 4, 7s get really, everything is possible and everything has potential. But the 8 energy is so focused that the 7 really needs to benefit from that focus that the 8 can offer them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So then how does the wing like influence our number? Can we talk about that?
Yeah. Rachel, I've got a little something up my sleeve.
Oh, no.
Okay. So stay with us because we're going to do a little something. We'll be right back. On today's episode of the Enneacast, we're exploring wings and arrows. Knowing ourselves is an essential part of discerning what it is that God is calling us to do. To hear one woman's journey of discerning God's call on her life, check out our other show, the Love Thy Neighborhood podcast. Specifically, make sure to check out episode number 2, where the gospel meets the sex industry.
We had identified the strip clubs in Louisville. We had said, okay, this is where they're at. This is how many there are.
And no kidding, I was a legend in the club.
Either you're going to give it away for free or you're going to get paid for it.
Hey, our wives are in the strip club and they're giving a meal to the dancers and the police officers weren't buying it.
And I was like, you have got to be freaking kidding me.
So subscribe now wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Just search Love Thy Neighborhood. Or head over to our website at lovethyneighborhood.org/podcast. All right, welcome back to the Enneacast. I'm Jesse Eubanks.
And I'm Sam Stevenson.
And right now, we're going to play Wingin' It. Okay, so this is how today's game is played. Rizzo and Hudson, who are Enneagram specialists, they have given special nicknames to a variety of personality types on the Enneagram. In other words, someone with a core type, let's say, for example, a 2, known as the helper, well, the 2 has a 1 wing and the 2 has a 3 wing. And Rizzo and Hudson have actually gone in and given special nicknames to each wing. And so today's game is, I'm going to give you a nickname and you're going to have to guess which wing it is. I'll tell you the core type, the nickname, and then you guess the wing.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You ready?
Oh, dear. Okay.
No, you're going to do great. You're going to do great.
That's debatable.
Yeah, you're probably not going to do great, but we're going to do this anyway. Okay, so let's kick it off with the 2. We're going to kick it off with the heart triad. So 2s, these folks are givers. They're generous. They're about taking care of other people. So here's the nickname.
Uh-huh.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. The host.
The host. Okay. And I'm guessing if the host is a 2-wing 1 or a 2-wing 3, right?
Right. So is a host a 2-wing 1 or is a host a 2-wing 3?
Okay. Well, with my limited Enneagram knowledge, host sounds like it's very people-oriented, and ones I think are pretty like justice, fairness-oriented, whereas 3s are more like people-pleasing, people-impressing.
Okay.
So I'm going to say that host is a 2-wing 3.
Yeah, correct.
Correct.
Yeah, you got it. Okay, so a 2-wing 1 is actually called the servant.
Okay.
And these 2s tend to be focused on doing things properly, and they can either be principled and objective, or they can become guilt-ridden, self-critical, controlling, self-righteous, judgmental. But a 2-wing 3, commonly known as the host or the hostess, these 2s tend to be more vested in image, and they can either be sociable, self-assured, ambitious, or they can struggle with issues of deception and manipulation or even vanity.
Okay, so you are correct. 1 point so far. So
Sweet.
Type 3, the achiever, remember they are the go-getters, the efficient person. And so the nickname is the professional. So is that either a 3-wing 2 or a 3-wing 4?
Oh, gosh.
This one's the hardest one, I think.
Okay. Well, my initial thought is that I'm a 4 and I don't feel very professional. So I'm gonna guess it's a 3-wing 2.
Oh man, nope. So the 3-wing 2 is actually called the charmer. And so they are the more people-oriented, they're more helpful, they're socially adept. The 3 can charm their way into other people's lives, so they can become a little flattering, a little manipulative. But the 3-wing 4 is the professional, and that means that they have a strong imagination, that visionary characteristic. They can either use their creativity for good, or they can become a little moody and arrogant and pretentious.
Okay. So you're 1 for 2.
All right.
Okay, so here we go. 4.
Okay, here's my type.
The originalist. So that's you and me. Folks like us tend to be creative. We tend to enjoy off the beaten path things, new things, non-duplicated things. Okay, so the 4, here's the term aristocrat. Which is not the same as Aristocat.
Yeah, not to be confused with the Disney film.
Yeah, aristocrat. And is this the 4-wing 3 or the 4-wing 5?
Man, that's got to be a 4-wing 3. Because when I think aristocrat, I think like very uppity, impressing other people.
Like bougie.
Yes, very bougie.
Yes.
4-wing 3?
Yeah. 4-wing 3.
Yes. Right.
So that's the aristocrat. I'm bougie, and these 4s they tend to be more lively, and so these kinds of 4s can be really energetic and active and outgoing.
They're more extroverted.
Yeah, a lot more extroverted, but we can also struggle with issues of being overly ambitious or even attention-seeking, and we can tend to be kind of snooty and elitist. We're bougie, and so but the 4-wing 5, and I love this term because I think it's so accurate. The term for the 4-wing 5 is bohemian.
Does that feel true for you, Rachel?
No. What?
It's completely true. Look, like bohemians are known for like
norms.
they don't really like social norms. They don't care. They tend to particularly it shows up in clothing. Like so I think of like Johnny Depp, I think of like Bob Dylan, I think of these folks that are like, I don't know, they're a little hippie-esque.
That's what I was going to say. Bohemian makes me think of a hippie.
Yeah, you're like a modern hippie, Rachel.
Don't label me.
Sorry about that. So, and these folks, they tend to have really strong imaginations, and they can either be creative and introspective and subdued, or they can become moody and arrogant and pretentious.
Dang, that does sound like me. Okay.
I was not going to say that.
Oh, no. All right. So you're 2 for 2, 2 for 4?
No, 2 for 3.
2 for 3. Math is hard. Okay, so type 5.
I've gotten 2 right.
Yes, that's all that matters. So the type 5 are in the het triad now. So we're either thinking about 5-wing 4s or 5-wing 6s. So the iconoclast is the nickname. Yeah.
Can I get a definition, please?
Yeah, an iconoclast is someone who defies socially constructed norms and ideals, particularly actually in like systems and religious institutions. That's what the definition that I looked up said. But I think in general, it's just somebody who defies long-held beliefs and systems.
Okay. So it's got to be a 4. It's got to be a 4 thing. So I'm going to guess that's a 5-wing 4.
Yeah, you're right.
Yes.
So 5-wing 4s, these people tend to be more people-oriented, and they can use their creativity in more artistic and imaginative ways. They're more sensitive and in tune with their feelings, but they can become that moody, melancholic, and self-absorbed thing from the 4. So the 5-wing 6 is the problem solver, and that 5 space tends to have more of that scientific or intellectual. So the problem solving piece, they can either use that 6 energy to be more logical, analytical, and hardworking, or they can be more skeptical and anxious and a little afraid of intimacy and closeness with others.
Okay, so you're at 3 points. Let's talk about the 6, the loyalists. So these are our faithful people. These are our reliable Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. These are our utility pocket knife people. Like they are just prepared and ready for 1,000 situations. Okay, so the loyalist, here's the nickname, the buddy. The buddy. Is that a 6-wing 5 or a 6-wing 7?
Okay. When I think of like a buddy, man, really, I think of Buddy the Elf. But, well, okay, yeah, so Buddy the Elf, very like energetic, which sounds like a 7 thing. 7s are very like adventurous, spontaneous, like let's go have fun. I'm going to say that's a 6-wing 7.
Boom.
Yeah.
Well done.
Check.
Okay, so the 6-wing 5, their nickname is the Defender. The Defender. And these kinds of 6s, they tend to be serious, and they tend to be more studious. And they can either be original and quiet, or they can become negative and arrogant, and actually they take on the reclusive traits of the 5 because they become so skeptical of other people that they just kind of withdraw. The 6-wing 7, commonly known as the buddy, these folks tend to be more outgoing and active, so they can either be sociable, playful, and they love to integrate into groups as opposed to the 6-wing 5, they withdraw. Or they can become overreactive and irritable, and they can actually struggle with materialism.
Cool. So you got that one right. So next is type 7. So we're talking about the enthusiast. Remember the joyful type, the optimist.
The party planning committee.
The spontaneous. Yeah. So they got all that energy, all of the possibilities, all the fun. So the nickname is the realist. So do you think that's the 7-wing 6 or the 7-wing 8?
The realist.
This is a hard one, I think.
It is. Yeah. I think this one's tricky too.
I think 6s tend to be pretty like skeptical, down to earth. I don't know if you would call that realism, but I feel like I'm going to guess that's a 7-wing 6.
Oh, no.
Ah!
So the 7-wing 6 is actually called the entertainer. And so they...
Really?
Yeah, it's interesting. So the 7 pulls from that 6 energy and makes them a little more relationally oriented. They can be more lighthearted and committed to their relationships. But they can also become easily hurt and hesitant and anxious. So they've got that negative 6 stuff going on too. So the 7-wing 8 is actually the realist. And so that 8 energy helps 7s be more grounded and in touch with their anger and their ideas. And it helps them to be more powerful and assertive. But the 8 energy can help impacts the 7 by a little more boisterous, a little more self-centered and unfaithful and unreliable.
Yeah, that one was a tricky one. I think that the clue on the realist is just this, is that 8s, because they're in the gut triad, tend to be very grounded in the moment, as opposed to the 6s can get a little lost in their head occasionally.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of the difference between those two. But
it makes sense.
That was a tough one.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, moving on to the gut triad. So we come to the 8. So this is the powerful person, the challenger, the advocate. Okay, so this is a tricky one. You ready?
Okay, yeah.
Here's the nickname, the bear.
The bear?
The bear.
Are we talking like a grizzly bear? Are we talking like a polar bear?
Yeah, just the bear.
Koala
Honestly,
bear?
either one. Yeah, for this one, it's interesting.
The bear. Oh, man. Well...
Either 7 or
this
9.
is tricky because you could go either, if it was an 8-wing 7.
They're a circus bear.
Yeah, you could go with like that kind of bear. If you go with an 8-wing 9,
is that a thing?
Circus bears are a thing.
That's like a teddy bear. I'm gonna guess that the bear is an 8-wing 7.
Wrong.
Oh man.
So the 8-wing 7 is actually called the Maverick, which is like. What a
awesome.
cool
Yes.
nickname. I so want to fly.
I want to be that.
I want to fly a jet right now. So these kinds of 8s, they tend to be really assertive, and they can either be sociable, ambitious, risk-taking, or they can become impulsive and overreacting, struggle with materialism, and they are prone to addiction. But an 8-wing 9 is commonly known as the bear. And when you think of the bear, think of both the teddy bear and the grizzly bear. And with an 8-wing 9, that is exactly what you get, except you don't know which bear occasionally is going to get unleashed. Am I going to get the cuddly one, or am I going to get, the attacking one?
Also, bears hibernate.
I was gonna say, yeah, bears. I think of all the bears that I know. All my bear friends. No, just like learning about bears. They like to be left alone. They like to store up food, and they like to sleep. And so I think that's true for 9 sometimes.
Yeah.
too.
Well, okay. So these 8s, they tend to be strong in sort of a quieter way. Like an 8-wing 7 tends to be really boisterous, and an 8-wing 9 tends to be much, much more subdued and quiet. And they can either be very sort of steady and supportive and patient, or they can take on some of that 9 stuff where they become cold and indifferent to other people. So that's the bear.
All right.
Okay.
What's my score?
4 out of
7.
Yeah, so 4 right, 3 wrong. I
Better
think the
than
next
half.
2 you'll get. I think I believe in you. Okay, so the type 9, as we know, are the peacemakers, the serene, the calm, the best number on the Enneagram.
That is not an official title.
Yeah, it is. So the 9s really bring a lot of peace and serenity and harmony to the world. So 9, wing 1 or wing 8, the referee.
I mean, a referee has got to be very, no pun intended for what they wear, but very black and white.
Yes.
Which makes me think that would be a 9-wing 1. They got to be fair. 9-wing 1.
No, sorry.
Oh, man.
So 9-wing 8s are actually called the referees, and they tend to be in more leadership positions. They're think about like the quickness of a referee. They have to make really quick calls. You know, no one likes a referee that doesn't make calls, and so the 8 energy helps the 9 to be more decisive and a little more aggressive. And so again, the 9-8 is independent, steady, willful, or they can take on that negative 8 stuff and become more aggressive and callous and even lustful. So the 9-wing 1 is actually called the dreamer. And so these 9s are typically more highly principled. They're very hardworking. They take on that dutifulness of the 1, but they can be modest and composed or orderly, or a little obsessive compulsive and a little self-righteous. So 9-1s are the dreamers.
Okay, so here we
Last
go.
one.
Here we go.
For all the
This is it, right? Like this will tilt the scales
This is
one
the
direction or the
tiebreaker.
other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Numbers.
I make it or break it here.
This is it, Rachel. Here we go. So,
this one's hard. These are
yeah, this is a tough one. Okay, this is the reformer. Type 1, the reformer. So these are our folks that are about fairness and justice. And here's the term.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
The advocate. Is the advocate the term for the 1-wing 9 or the 1-wing 2?
I want to help her by giving her the other name. I think that would...
No, that's
No,
cheating.
no.
That's cheating.
I want to
It would help, but it's cheating.
I just want her to win.
Oh,
Sam can't deal with the lack of peace in this room.
Just so much tension.
I think advocates speak up for people. They help people, which is a 2 thing. I think it's a 1-wing 2.
Yeah.
Rachel Szabo, congratulations! You have won Wingin' It.
1,000 points.
What do I win? A bird?
You win a recording studio.
We'll give it your studio back and a few more episodes. Sorry.
Okay, so a 1-wing 9 is actually called an idealist, and these types of ones tend to be more detached. So they can either be easygoing, objective, calm. They tend to do things in moderation, or they can become impersonal and actually really stubborn. A 1-wing 2 is known as the advocate. And these types of ones tend to express their feelings more, and they can either be helpful, empathetic, warm, sensitive to others, or they can become, they take on the non-resourceful traits of that too. They become image conscious, they become attention seeking, and they can become controlling. So those are the 18 nicknames of all the types. That's a lot of nicknames.
Yeah.
This episode was a dense one. So so if you've stuck with it, congratulations. You did graduate from this episode. And Sam would be glad to hand draw a certificate of graduation for you.
We'll email it to you.
On a Post-it note. She'll mail it to you, old school.
Probably not. I probably won't do it. I probably won't get around to it.
She's a 9.
She's a 9. She's going to go eat food and hibernate.
I'm going to commit to that, totally deceivingly lie about it. I'll totally get around to that. Nope, not true.
As always, thank you so much for listening to the Enneacast. Thanks, Rachel, for coming by and asking us all these clarifying questions. And
clearly I need to still brush up on my wings a little bit.
Yeah. And you're a bohemian, so what do you care anyway?
Right, I don't care. I'm going to go sit on a beach.
As always, thank you to Crosspoint Ministry, who trained us in the Enneagram. Please go check out their website or sign up for one of their Enneagram intensive workshops. Be trained as an Enneagram coach. Head over to crosspointministry.com.
Our show is a production of Love Thy Neighborhood. Love Thy Neighborhood offers social action internships supported by Christian community for young adults ages 18 to 30. Serve for a summer or a year. Grow in your faith and life skills. Learn more at lovethyneighborhood.org.
Today's episode was produced by myself and Sam Stevenson, engineering and editing by Janelle Dawkins with Justice Smith and Rachel Szabo. Music for today's episode comes from Murphy DX.
I'm Sam Stevenson.
And I am Jesse Eubanks. Remember, the eye can see everything but itself. Find people to journey with you because you were created for community.